o'clock, so excuse me, we'll get the meeting started. So first on the agenda, any apologies? Steve?
So Donna McRae, who's not very well.
Okay. Tyler?
Kat Harlow, and I'm subbing for her. Ken Woodhead and Stephen is subbing for Ken, and then Sarah Webb got a migraine about half hour before the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Adam Stockwell is at work and can't get away either tonight or tomorrow, so I've drawn the short straw and will be subbing.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay then, so next on the agenda, declarations of interest. Has anybody got a declaration of interest? Stephen?
Yeah, I've just been appointed to the board of Liberty Leisure, but as I'm not attending my first meeting till the 8th, I won't be leaving the room.
Okay. So I'm a director of Liberty Leisure, and so I'm going to leave the room for this, and Jill will item 8. Okay. So next one, we've got minutes of the previous meeting. I'd like to propose them. Any seconders? But everybody was there. Seconder. Yeah. So all those in favour of the true? Any against? Abstentions? Thank you. Minutes from working groups. I don't think we've got any minutes from working groups, have we?
No, sure.
No. Okay, thank you. Considerations of call-ins. Also, don't believe we've got any considerations of call-ins.
No, sure.
Thank you. So on to our first tonight, which is a notary report for the Performance Management Framework Business Planning and Budget Setting, which I believe is Martin.
It is. Thank you, and good evening all. So yeah, this is just a noting report to set out the performance management framework. I think in years gone by we introduced each business plan with this report, so saw it as a good way to streamline. And the only thing we've not quite done is we've got this on the agenda again tomorrow night when we go through the second phase. So tonight, part one, as it were, we're looking at the community safety. We're looking at environment and climate change, and looking at leisure and health. In terms of the framework, so hopefully those who've been on previously will sort of will recognise the format of business plans. And again, you're asked to recommend these on, approve these this evening and recommend on. The plans have been developed in conjunction with general management team, but also with the Office of Priority Leads, and some of whom are here to support this evening. In terms of our performance hierarchy and measures of performance, we have critical success indicators, which are our CSIs, and they're our highest level performance indicators, but also key performance indicators, KPIs as well, for reporting to GMT and members. You'll also see within the business plans as we go through, there's a list of key tasks and priorities for improvement for each priority over the next 3 years, and which then includes any budget implications. These budget implications will then feed the way forward into the respective budget reports as well. In terms of the financial estimates, when we come across them this evening, this committee we asked to recommend to Cabinet and then on to full council that we approve the revenue budgets, the capital programme and the proposed fees and charges. Detailed budget estimates in each area have been drawn up in conjunction with the respective service managers and budget managers. I think we've got over 3,300 lines of budgets that we summarise in these reports this evening. So summary figures for each service area and cost centre presented within the respective appendices as we're going through. And the main reasons for the changes between the different years are then listed, and you'll see those as we progress. Any capital programmes for the respective priority areas are also presented tonight for recommendation on, and then of course the fees and charges as well, which have been reviewed and are as presented as proposed in the appendices tonight. So I'd say happy to take any comments and questions now, but this is the framework and we'll proceed on to look at the 3 business plans this evening. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions or comments on this noting report? No? Excellent. So that's duly noted. So on to our next one, item agenda 7, which is the community safety business plans and financial estimates. Now Maurice isn't here, so Martin's going to lead on this one. So all yours again, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so unfortunately, the priority lead is not able to be with us tonight to support, but I'll kick off the sort of the business plan as it is, and Rachel Shaw, our Assistant Director of Housing, has also got certainly some involvement in this respect in this particular business plan, so we'll come in as well. I think in some of the key points I think to bring out, I think in terms of the measures of performance that we have from page 26 onwards, so starting with the CSIs, I think are sort of well embedded now as performance indicators that we have for community safety. So again, we're able to put some good performance data in there and show trends, and then set the targets for future years. And obviously we can look at that shortly and take some feedback. In terms of the sort of the key areas for improvements and the key tasks and priorities, again, you'll see within the report lots of items that we'd consider as having seen previously. Again, I think a lot of time within community safety, a lot of it is dependent on the resources that are available and to enable us to deliver what we want to achieve. And you'll see with a lot of the budget implications on those tables, they talk about being within existing resources and budgets. But yeah, in linking on page 37, brings that link between the key tasks and priorities for improvement and the financial budgets. And yeah, I think in asking Rachel if she's got anything specific to add, and then we'll consider business plans first, and then look at the financial estimates afterwards, if that's okay.
Rachel?
Thank you.
Only just quickly to add something I think comes up most years when we discuss targets, particularly around antisocial behaviour, is it's quite difficult to set the targets because whilst we want to reduce antisocial behaviour, we also want to be able to encourage people to report it to us as well. So figures being too low would indicate that actually we haven't got the mechanism in place for people to easily report it to us. But we don't want our figures to be too high as well. So that's always a challenge that all four of the departments that set targets within this business plan have. So happy to answer any further questions around that or anything else anybody may wish to ask.
Thank you, Rachel. So, has anybody got any questions? Yes, Philip.
Yeah, I don't know whether you're taking it, if you're taking the report as a whole, but I've a number.
As a whole, so if you've got a particular page, just shout
I've
out
got a number of points, and we start with page 23, the community safety business plan, and the priorities there. A safe place for everyone, and we get these very nebulous statements: reduce antisocial behaviour in Broxtowe, work with partners to reduce violence, reduce drug and alcohol use. And yet we don't seem to have any baseline figures, certainly not much in the way of baseline figures, to be able to judge whether going forward those priorities have been achieved. And Rachel Shaw's already mentioned antisocial behaviour. It seems here in this report that we've got line after line dealing with antisocial behaviour. Now, to me, antisocial behaviour, it doesn't matter whether it's in social housing, it doesn't matter whether it's in private housing, it doesn't matter whether it's in a state or whether it's in a rural area. Antisocial behaviour is antisocial behaviour, and it needs to be listed, in my view, as one particular figure as far as antisocial behaviour is concerned. And when you look at the CSI ones on page 26, your priority is to reduce antisocial behaviour. And when I look at the figures, the change is absolutely negligible. It's neither here nor there. You've failed before you even start with those targets. And what I can't understand is an incident of antisocial behaviour reported by multiple persons are recorded as separate incidents. Now, to me, that seems daft. If you have an incident of antisocial behaviour, why record it as being 10 cases if 10 people have reported the same incident? If I was cynical, I would say it's to keep the figures up to justify increasing the budget. But of course, I'm not a cynic and I wouldn't dream of saying that. So why are we doing it like that? And again, to come back to a point I've already made, we've got there antisocial behaviour cases reported separately and with responsibility to the housing operations manager or the head of communities and community safety. And that seems to me to be just plain daft. And when I look on page 28, CS3, all crime, we've got a target there of just under 7,000. Again, there is no significant reduction. But to my mind, that's not, I don't know why we have got that particularly as one of our targets, because crime reduction is a matter for the police. And I know they like to, offload everything that they can onto local authorities. I think many of us are used to that. And we can see that where again we've got on the next page, page 29, police refer antisocial behaviour cases of neighbour nuisance where no crimes are being committed to the communities department. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable in my view. Antisocial behaviour I regard as being a crime, even if it's a low-level crime, if you can have such a thing. And if the police would get their act together and start tackling low-level crime, it might improve the situation overall. I find it a bit strange, page 31, review antisocial behaviour case review policy. So we're going to review a review, which seems to me to be a bit of an overkill. And when we come to school talks on antisocial behaviour, white ribbon and healthy relationships, I'm not sure that that is our role, quite frankly. I really am not sure that that is our role. If anything, it's the role of the police. And I would ask the question, do we charge for that particular service? Because if not, I think we should. Deliver modern slavery statement. I just thought that was already drawn up and it was from government anyway. I don't know why we've got to be doing that. Review and update the serious organised crime strategy. Are we now really trying to tackle serious organised crime in this council? It really, because that's the implication. We're in partnership with the police. I see it says there, deliver an efficient and effective service for residents. Well, are we, our council officers going out to tackle serious organised crime? And I'm also interested on page 34, reduce fraud. Now, we get reports to the Governance and Standards Committee. We get a fraud report periodically. And we've been told in recent times, certainly, there have been no cases of fraud against the council. There have been none. Now, I don't know how we're going to reduce from 0 downwards. But that's, in effect, what it says, a targeted outcome is to reduce fraud. And it seems to me all the way through that we are trying to justify an existence of certain sections of this council, which I find not particularly helpful. If we look at the revenue budget, I don't know that, which is on page 39, I note that income is projected to be down by over £100,000, and I'm not sure, I might have missed it. I'm not entirely certain where that is coming from. It would be useful to know. And corporate recharges, which I know there is some attempt to explain, and perhaps no doubt being particularly thicker than I usually am, that corporate recharges, difference of over £100,000 in corporate recharges. Now, why are we shuffling charges about within an authority? I think it is a matter that really needs explanation. And then finally, I suppose, at the moment anyway, charges. It would be useful because I know that some of the charges, fees, and licensing fees, etc., we are only allowed to charge what the government tells us to charge. I think it would be useful to have that indicated, to be honest, where we've got no discretion, because it's almost pointless looking at it because we have no discretion. We just go to the maximum anyway. So I'm not entirely clear about that. And I don't know whether that would apply on page 51 to houses in multiple occupation, the full licence fee or renewal, whether that's government fixed or not. Because if it isn't, then I think we could certainly hike that up to a much higher level to take account of the nuisance that many of them causes. Anyway, that's to be going on with.
Thank you, Philip. Stephen.
Okay, I've got a few points as well. Which,
Stephen, can I just get these ones answered first, and we'll come back to it, mate.
well, some of them probably duplicated.
Okay, that's fair enough then, mate. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so just going on to page 26, and the reduction in ASB cases reported to the borough regarding council, I think that's really good, and it's really pleasing to see, given that although the Conservatives deny it, there is a correlation between deprivation and antisocial behaviour, and given the cost of living crisis and what have you, so I think that's really pleasing to see that there's been a reduction. Also, I disagree that the crime is just down to the police as well, following up on the comment about all crime, because I think that we have a really important part to play in reducing crime. So as an example, if all our ginnels are overgrown and all that sort of stuff, then generally you get an increase in antisocial behaviour. So I think there is a link between general crime and what the borough do. Residents in Nottinghamshire feeling different from different backgrounds get on well. I'm quite concerned that somehow the target for next year is less than what was achieved in 23-24. That's page 29. So a bit concerned about target setting on there. Review and update the serious organised crime strategy. Once again, the council play a really leading part in terms of county lines, cuckooing and other associated areas. So once again, I think the council have a really big part to play in that. Going on to the charges, like Philip, I'm a bit concerned why in licensing there is no increase in charges. And once again, I didn't realise that statutory we couldn't increase some of them, so that might be the case. So I think Philip makes a fair point there. Page 39, once again, I've questioned the licensing, which then is explained on page 41. Regarding to central support recharges, not quite sure why it would apply for what. I can understand why recharges take place, but why would it occur in one year and not in the previous year? That's it.
Very much. Colin, go on then.
I thought the council actually work in partnership with the police. I don't see why Councillor Owen expects everything to be compartmentalised. Bad behaviour is not just a police issue, it is also a council issue as well. We have responsibilities to make sure that the people in Broxtowe are satisfied about the community. Part of the community is good, part of the community is not so good. We need to make sure that we have the right things in place for children to develop in a social and socialising way, rather than expecting the police to take the bulk of problems.
Thank you, Colin. So, do you want to lead with that? Oh, sorry, Anna. We'll come in now.
Just a point for those, I've been looking through the papers. Page 43, licensing fees. Licenses for which the fees are fixed by statute and amended from time to time by statutory instruments. So I assume that's set by the government, and so increased or decreased according to what the government or the dictates. And then if you go on to page 46, licenses for which the fees are at the discretion of the council. So I assume those that we have some discretion to increase, decrease or keep the same accordingly. Just thought I'd clarify for
Okay, thank you.
members.
Steve.
On that issue then, page 52, which is discretionary, public protection fines, if you like, I cannot see why they can't be increased. I mean, £100 for breaching a public space order isn't much of a deterrent in my opinion, and giving people the option to pay them early and get a reduction is, you know, you've either done it or you haven't, have you? Let's face it. So I think we should look again at whether we should actually be increasing those. I don't know whether now is the best place to raise it, but also one of the issues we have in Beeston with antisocial behaviour is the area of land that the 10 Bell is, which actually is part of the highway, but it's owned by Sainsbury's, and it's absolutely really difficult to get any action taken there because Sainsbury's are so slow at doing it. And perhaps this is something that perhaps Cabinet could look at in the future, is to whether we should ask Sainsbury's to actually hand over the ownership of that small area where the 10 Bell is to the council, so that we can actually police it, because that is the area where most ASB in Beeston comes from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to go with that, Martin? You ready for it?
Discussed. No, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so obviously quite a few bits to talk through there, and obviously members have discussed some of the issues that's raised as well. And I think it is important that, you know, as one of our key priorities, the work that we do in community safety with you know, in partnership with other agencies, including the police, is important and is reflected within this action plan. You know, it is noted that in some areas, you know, we do have issues with data collection, mostly in respect of data that we're not the holder of that data, and we do sometimes have to wait for that information to come through. Obviously, from our point of view, for all our efforts, there is a bigger picture in terms of performance rates and performance and the way data comes through and the target with that. And again, I think that is then reflected in here. Again, we're all wanting to drive antisocial behaviour, drive crime down for what we're doing. But again, I think they're as best presented. But note the comments in terms of the targets as well. You know, some areas we've talked about negligible change. Again, something that we can certainly work through, and maybe something again through scrutiny, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, we can continue to sort of work and monitor. Just looking at any other specifics. Again, noted the comment about sort of the targets in terms of residents in Nottinghamshire feeling people from different backgrounds get on well. Again, in terms of annual surveys, again, I suppose it's one of those things with the timing of a survey. But note the comment that, you know, we've achieved a position of 59% last year, 62% previously, and we're setting that target at 60. But I think effectively, without the priority lead here tonight, I can't specifically comment, but the target seems to be sort of ballpark for what the average sort of rating's been across there. Again, lots of partnership working within the key tasks and areas for priorities for improvement. Noted the point about the sort of school talks, and whether it's our role, whether we should be charging for that service. But again, I think we can all sort of see that, you know, the value of who's delivering that service, you know, particularly to our younger people as well, to, you know, to set those there. But again, I will ask the question, Councillor Owen, in terms of whether we recharge for those kind of services. I've not got that answer to hand, but I suspect it's probably something that's maybe done through grant funding as one thing, but I'll get that confirmed for you. Again, I think we've picked up about sort of the review of the serious organised crime strategy and the work that we do within in partnership on that. Question about sort of the fraud covenant, reviewing the fraud covenant and reducing fraud. Obviously, yes, the governance audit and standards get a regular annual report on fraud. And again, this is very much linked towards the sort of wider impact of fraud on the community rather than necessarily against the council. We have quite a positive fraud report that comes forward to our committee meeting, to our gas committee meeting. But this is again linked to sort of wider partnership work with trying to help prevent fraud within the community. In terms of budgets, some useful questions in terms of budgets as well. Firstly, on corporate recharges, again, always an interesting one. Again, when you get accountants to sort of analyse costs, and again, to coin a phrase that we use regularly around pushing peas around a plate as one that we show. But yeah, as for this part of this budget setting, we've reviewed the sort of position with regard to not so much timesheets, but proportion of people's time that's allocated to different areas. Certainly within the community safety remit, there's been a sort of emphasis on more support coming through from sort of the business support team in supporting with the administration, and it's just changed a few lines in terms of the corporate recharges costs. Obviously, in terms of the overall picture, the net impact is zero across the council in terms of recharge costs, but certainly within community safety, there's been an extra charge coming through in the new financial year. And again, in terms of reduced income, there's a couple of areas where grant funding that we've received in this financial year will drop out in next year. So again, we're looking towards, keep bidding for grant funding, keep looking to receive grant funding in. And also there was a fall in changes in the surveillance partnership where we lost a contribution there that's noted on page 40. And again, I get the point. I fully support the point about, again, we'll look again at whether it's, there's a better way at picking out in the fees and charges list which ones we've got more control over and which ones are statutory set. And again, we'll get those indicated. But again, any proposals this evening, I think one thing to remember in terms of licences, we're not supposed to generate a surplus from these particular sales. We're supposed to just sort of cover our costs, but there's certainly scope within individual licences. Well, but there's certainly scope within our individual licences that, if members were minded to look at having a higher charge, then that's certainly something we can put into consideration. Again, obviously this is setting the fees and charges for 26-27, but there's nothing that would stop us considering this as part of a part year uplift as well, if members were so minded. So that's useful. I don't know if is anything you wish to add, Rachel?
No, unfortunately, I don't think there's much I can add because there's not many housing things that have come up.
No.
I'd like to add one bit, which was one of Philip's early questions, was about the antisocial behaviour and how it's done on everybody that's called in. Yes. And I believe that's because we get the figures from the police. I did ask Maurice, could you check up on that for us?
Of course.
So I think what it is, they give us the numbers. So if there's one incident and there's 10 people report it, it's counted as 10 incidents. And I don't think we necessarily get that information, I believe, but if we can check up on that. Philip, you had another question?
Yeah, I think it's particularly disappointing that neither the lead officer nor the cabinet member for this particular portfolio are here tonight, because I think it's their responsibility to be picking up the points that have been made rather than Martin Payne. Right, let me come back to one or two answers. You talked about the reduction of grant funding as a significant impact on income. So if we don't get any, if that grant funding isn't forthcoming for this next year, and I presume we don't know that at the moment, what are we going to stop doing that we are doing now? That would be my first point. And then to come back to the comments on serious organised crime. Well, what evidence as to the impact of this that this council has on a reduction in serious organised crime in the borough? What evidence is there as far as the impact is concerned, and the same as far as serious fraud is concerned? Clearly, and we've had a response and a discussion on fraud within the council, but you, Mr. Payne was talking about fraud within the community. So what evidence is there that what the council is doing or not doing has any impact on serious organised crime and fraud within the community?
Martin, add to those.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of grant funding, it would be more a case of us receiving specific grant funding in this financial year to help us deliver a particular task, a particular topic. Again, I've not got details to hand this evening, rather than it being core funding that we use towards supporting the general community safety work that we do. Again, I can get a full list back to you, if that would be useful. In terms of it's unfortunate this evening that we've not got the priority lead with us, and again, for that I can only apologise to members, but again, unforeseen sort of circumstances with that, to not have that there. I think in terms of the comments about certainly with the the serious organised crime and with the fraud, I mean, linking certainly with the serious organised crime, I'm going to have to get further information for you on that basis. I think in terms of the fraud, it's very much us being part of partnership working where there is county-wide, borough-wide sort of support towards residents and looking to reduce the impact of fraud on the community. Again, within the sort of partnership working there, we talk about trading standards, we talk about anti-fraud partnership and police. So again, I think it's us linking in with partnership working with a view to getting that, to getting those numbers down.
Okay, nice try.
Thank you. It was Colin first.
Well, I'm aghast by the flippancy of Councillor Owen yet again. It just amazes me how he manages to be so basically faultless.
Okay, Helen, and then Steve.
We've got quite a long list here of all the fees and charges, but there isn't a breakdown of how much money the council makes every year from charging these, what the income is. I was wondering if it'd be possible in future to see kind of how many of these different fees and charges we actually charge people, so we can see how much money is made.
Yeah, sure.
And where it goes.
Yeah. Steve,
Can do that.
Yeah, perhaps just to point out one area where we do have a very, very huge input into serious crime, and that's with county lines. And we have to bear in mind that we actually work in partnership with the police and social services at the county council and schools. And very often, our officers, when they're dealing directly with people out there, can pick these things up. All of our staff have had training on county lines. I'm right, aren't I? And that's councillors should have had as well, and what to look out for. And it's those sorts of incidents, when you're dealing with the public, interacting with the public, that sometimes you can pick up and pass that on. We're not saying, I don't think, that we are, as a council, directly responsible for reducing serious crime, but we're certainly part of it. I think that's what we're saying. And I'm going to say it again, I still think that we ought to be looking at the fines for in the public protection, page 52. At least a 25% increase, in my opinion.
And it's definitely something, Martin, to look at. And I agree with you on the crime thing. I think, as I understand what Philip's saying, but we'll all appreciate it's a community effort.
Yeah.
And without the information coming from councillors, from officers, from people in the community, that information is vital for the police. And I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
And it works better that way rather than just being this body that is unapproachable. Hannah, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just in talk of the penalty notices and fines. There's quite a disparity. I'll just refer people to page 133, which I know is the environment and climate change. But
Can we get that when we get there?
no. Just compare the fixed penalty notice for littering, £500. Breaching a public space order, breaching a community protection notice, £100. And I appreciate it's the littering and light tipping fees are probably set by WISE, who are being
Set by the
contacted
government.
by the
On those ones, it's set by the government, whereas these ones are set by us.
right.
Well, I think the government have given us
The guideline.
Yeah.
Emma, you wanted to come in on that one?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So with regards to the FPNs within environment, they are set by government, and we have gone to the maximum that we can with early repayment. So that early repayment is, again, guidance from the government. So that's where those fees and charges come from.
Yeah, I think that gives us some license
Stephen.
to increase.
You had your
I
hand up.
just want to come back to the fees that we charge, and although it's very good, obviously some have gone up, some haven't gone up and things. Just some sort of understanding as to what those prices are, what's the rationale for keeping them the same or increasing them would have actually been quite useful. So for all I know, if you look at private hire hackney carriages, we could have done a competitor analysis, seeing that Wolverhampton is half the price of ours, and therefore there isn't the scope to increase prices. Fair enough, but at the moment you don't have limited information to be able to understand it, I think.
Okay. Councillor Marshall, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, it's to help remind Councillor Owen, of course, about the successes that have happened through Broxtow's interventions, particularly around crime initiatives. You'll remember, of course, or maybe he doesn't, or maybe he's forgetting, in October in 2024, which is actually part of the serious organised crime partnership that we have with the police. There was a drug dealer from Beeston who was caught with thousands of pounds worth of Class A drugs, and with knives and axes, as well as part of that serious organised crime initiative. And of course, as Councillor Jeremiah said, that extends into places like modern slavery. Your argument seems to be that we shouldn't have a role in that, that should all be the police. I don't agree with that. I think we should have a role with that, to help our communities and to help our residents, and to help partner in a time of reduced resources, ostensibly driven by austerity, which were your government in charge when you got rid of 20,000 police officers on the street. But apart from that, I think we do have a role in meeting that shortfall for communities, and we will continue to have these partnership initiatives.
Any other questions before we move on from this?
Sorry,
yes.
Can I just say, I should have said earlier, actually, over the next couple of evenings, we're about to look at pretty in-depth information on various workings of the council. If you think there are any subjects that come up that could be good for scrutiny topics, if you just sort of shout them up, and I'll make a note of them, and maybe we can look to formulate a work programme at our next meeting in March. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is, the committee's asked to recommend, so I'd like to propose this report. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. All those in favour? Against? And abstentions? Thank you. So that one's carried. So this is item 8. I will be leaving the room, and Jill will be taking this one. Please ask her plenty of questions. Who's slow with me? Are you, Jill?
Yes, it's a bit scary, this is. I didn't expect to come and chair part of the meeting tonight. It's a very long time since I chaired a meeting at Broxtow. Many, many years ago, and Councillor Cole, at least I would think, will remember, I used to be deputy leader of the council. But I would think most of you can't remember that. But anyway, I'm chairing this meeting, so remember, Councillor Owen, that in fact I'm in charge. Right, okay then. So the recommendation is that the committee note the Liberty Leisure Limited business plan and recommend that Cabinet approve the Leisure and Health business plan. Cabinet recommends to Council that the following be approved. The detailed revenue budget estimates for 2026-27 base. The capital programme for 2026-27 to 2028-29 and the fees and charges for 2026-27. Okay, off we go.
Just the proposer and seconder, please.
Oh,
Chair.
sorry. You should remind me. I will propose it. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cole.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is the Leisure and Health Business Plan and Financial Estimates Report. In terms of the Leisure and Health Business Plan, plenty of business as usual activity across all statutory functions in terms of what's set out. In a similar to the previous one, we've got a well-established list of performance indicators, which again provides good data coming forward. So again, happy to take any comments or questions on that. In terms of the Liberty Leisure business plan, pleased that Dan Gammons as business director has joined us this evening to give us some oversight on that, and I'll bring you in shortly, Dan, if that's okay. In terms of the budgets, a budget summary on the revenue budget is provided from page 89, plus some summary in terms of the changes between the years. Also, on this particular instance, we've got a capital programme that's coming forward. We've got some investment there in respect to sort of gym equipment replacement, you'll see. Also, amongst other things as well, a potential paddle court canopy at the Stapleford Community Pavilion, and some internal and external works at the D.H. Lawrence Museum. And then, for just a short page in terms of some leisure and health fees and charges. Obviously, fees and charges in terms of Liberty Leisure are set through the Liberty Leisure board. So the leisure and health review of fees and charges here is predominantly in respect of museum activity. So happy to take any. In fact, do you want to come in, Dan, at this stage to talk a little about Liberty Leisure? Thank you.
So just to add a little bit to the figures, I have re-looked at the figures and they've slightly improved as well. So that's just from one thing from a Liberty Leisure point of view. So this year's been a pretty good year, and that's been reflected then moving into the future years. Main thing for us this year has been opening up Stapleford Pavilion, and then that obviously moves forward into its first full year coming into the 26-27 year, and it's just kind of continuing with that, and hopefully with the new leisure centres planning being approved last week, then hopefully that will form a big part of our business planning moving forward in the coming years. So it's just a bit of an overview, and then happy to take any questions, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Land.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested to how Stapleford Pavilion, I mean, it's great to have that open and working, and I'm hoping it's proving successful, but have we got any idea of how much that's kind of generating so far, either, income-wise or, is it meeting kind of targets, expectations, etc.? And then, sorry, I'll ask all my questions in one go. So that was on page 71, and then page 77. We've got the planning permission given for the Bramcote Leisure Centre. As a Bramcote councillor, I'm very interested in this and keen to see that go ahead. But again, I'm just wondering, is there any update on how this is going, and is it going according to plan, I suppose, and any impact on budget for that? And I think there was one more thing from me.
Does it show something else?
Yeah, just on page 85, the increases in budget and staffing costs. Hopefully the community pavilion should bring in more income to meet some of those staffing costs, and I'm just inquiring as to that. Is that set to occur, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And great to see we're getting additional income from the swim school on page 86. Yeah. I can't read my own writing, so we'll forget that. That's it from me.
Thank you, Chair. On page 58, there's two there. Inactive adults in Broxtowe Borough, which is for November 24 was nearly 22%. We've got no figures yet for sport and physical activity, but obviously there's some time in the future we are going to have a figure for that. And I just wonder how holistically we look at this, because I will take you, I know I'm jumping to another report, but it is pertinent. On page 134 and 135 of the environment, we're looking at their fees, and the fees for football, cricket, bowls, tennis are all going up. Some of them by 25%. Certainly most of them are over the rate of inflation, and I just wonder where that fits in with our desire to actually make more people active. I just don't think the two marry up together.
Councillor Jeremiah.
Yeah, I just want a point of clarification, really, which is on the capital programme, in that you have reserve items for Bramcote Leisure Centre. I just want to check my understanding. This is stuff that we're not actually planning to spend unless we desperately have to. So all we're doing is whacking a bit in reserves.
Can I? Okay, so yeah, so through you, Chair, again, I'll pick up a few and then I'll bring Dan in as well. In terms of the reserve items, we're not putting items into reserve. These are effectively areas, obviously, Bramcote Leisure Centre as an ageing facility, you know, patched together for want of a better phrase at times, but serves as well. These are areas that have been identified as priority, medium to high priority works that would be required at some stage if we didn't, you know, if we weren't able to proceed with the replacement of the site. So in this capital programme, we're recognising these as reserve items. If external funding or if council funding became available to prioritise towards these, we would bring this forward to Cabinet and effectively have a reserve budget there to kick straight into action. However, in view of the fact that we've got planning on the replacement leisure centre, it's hoped that these items won't be needed. I think in terms of, I think that links us nicely onto sort of Bramcote Leisure Centre and where we are. Obviously, we're all delighted that we received, you know, got through and got the planning permission the other evening. Where we are now is we'll be working with the partners that we've got in this particular, you know, in the scheme, looking to get updated contractor costs, and then I'll be bringing a report back to Cabinet. The intention being March to come up with a final business case in terms of getting that funding package together. So look out for that one in March, and then from there, you know, with a sound business case and Cabinet's approval, we'll be looking to kick off construction as soon as practically possible from there. I think maybe one more item just to pick up on in terms of Councillor Carr in terms of inactive adults. You know, a good point, you know, a fair point made in terms of that link between inactive adults and maybe an increase in our fees and charges. I'll maybe something to bring Emma Giorgio into later, but I think in terms of our fees and charges, you know, it's very much linked to demand. There's a good demand for sort of our football pitches and letting those out at the moment, which is enabling us to consider that, you know, just making sure we're meeting our costs. Whether that can, you know, with only a finite number of sort of resources, whether that can get more people off this inact, off this inact, or increasing this is data is for another. But obviously, Dan, he can come in with a few other things that obviously that's not the only area where we're trying to get people active, and maybe not the biggest step change that we can make. Dan, do you want to come in on a few?
Just quickly on the Safer Pavilion, we this year on its own, this pavilion will make a bit of a loss this year, but that's because it's starting and we've only been open for 5 months by the time it comes to March. But we do anticipate it on its own generating a surplus from next year, and it is included within all the figures as a new.
Councillor Land and then Councillor Marshall.
Thank you.
And after that, Councillor Owen.
Right.
Right.
Are we confident these reserve items for the leisure centre, Branca, are we confident, how confident are we that we're not going to need those for the before the new leisure centre is built? Are we?
It's done on a condition survey. It's measured. It's done with an expectation of when it would take. Unfortunately, the building's 60 years old. We don't know exactly what's going to go wrong next because there tends to be something going wrong, and we manage it as best as we can. But you can't foresee exactly when something might break, might fall down, and we try to just manage things as best as we can.
Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, the inactive adults is a critical service indicator, success indicator for us as an authority. It links, of course, to the health benefits that can bring. I'm interested to know whether our target is driven by the national average. The national average is about 22%. But the importance, I think, we should focus on that averages are averages, aren't they, for a reason. Obviously, the crucial element of the North-South strategy is trying to develop a centre at Eastwood, and of course when you move into certain other areas there's a far closer link with deprivation and inactivity in that sense, and it can rise into, it can add another 10, 15 or 20 odd percentage points in terms of your district average in that sense where there are areas of deprivation, and that is why the Eastwood plan is so crucial to us as an authority, let alone the other health benefits that the doctors have provided as part of the support of the business case. That is the crucial element, and that is why we should be supporting the Eastwood development as well as Hickins Lane, as well as a rebuilt Bramcote Leisure Centre. But fundamentally, the opening question is are our targets, do we know, and I don't mind if you inform me later, are they driven by a response to the national average and fundamentally just trying to slightly outperform the national average, or is there anything more sophisticated than that?
Councillor Winfield and then Councillor Owen.
On page 58, there's an item at the bottom around air quality, and I just note that our achievement has been one of decline. I'm just wondering whether these figures are targets which seem to be quite low, whether we are benchmarked against other authorities. My concern stems from the fact that in my ward, of East and West, the census indicates quite poor air quality anyway. Air quality being poor is linked with conditions like asthma, and furthermore, asthma results in lost school days for our young people, and not only does it affect life expectancy, but it affects educational outcomes. And I'm quite concerned that our targets to reduce this doesn't seem to be ambitious, and it seems to be getting worse rather than better. So I'd like to know what our plans are around improvement.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to pick up one or two points about leisure centres, Councillor Marshall makes a very eloquent comment about Eastwood. Of course, if you hadn't closed the Kimberley one, then it wouldn't have been such a problem, but there we are. Moving on to Bramcote. Mr. Payne talked about planning permission. Yes, it went through the planning committee, but planting approval won't actually be given until certain conditions are met. And I don't know whether those conditions are anywhere closer to being met or not, because it can't be signed off by the planners until those conditions have been met, and that could be many weeks down the track. They're not a running track. Anyway, I get very sceptical about these figures. Inactive adults in Broxtowe Borough. I've never been asked. It's a national survey, isn't it? That's carried out, and I find it hard to believe that there's only 1 in 5 that are inactive in Broxtowe. Quite frankly, I suspect the bar must be set very low if there's only 1 in 5 that aren't active. But in a way, to my mind, it's a meaningless figure, quite honestly. But let's have a look at 1 or 2 of these. And I come back on page 60 to this: residents who feel the council listens to them. Only 70%. So that's over 1 in 4 that feel the council doesn't listen to them. Of course, in order to listen to people, you've got to answer the telephone, and that often doesn't happen, as we know. So we might improve. We could set a better target if we could get a system whereby people answered telephones more regularly, and the residents could be listened to. But we've spoken about that for many, many times.
Less than 10%, Councillor Owen, who don't answer the phone.
No, those are failed. Those are calls that are abandoned. Yeah, but when you get past the customer service desk, that's the problem. So the figures are massaged, as I would expect from you. The figures are massaged, but I want to focus on subsidies. Which start on page 61. And we have an events programme, and the subsidies for events is £2.80, £2.70, going down to £2.25, which is okay. On page 73, Liberty Leisure, subsidy per visit to all service areas is a mere 35%, going down to 0 in 28-29, which I've no problems with. I think that's very commendable. But you know what I'm going to say, and I'll keep on saying it. We turn back to page 61, and lo and behold, subsidy per visit to the D.H. Lawrence Birthplace Museum achieved in 24-25, £15.10. Every person that went into that place as a paying customer was subsidised by the council taxpayer to the tune of £15.10. And such is our target setting, that in future years it'll be a mere £12.50. Now, to me, that is an appalling amount of money when you consider that in future years residents visiting our leisure centres and our in particular are going to get no subsidy at all. As I say, I have no problem with that. I think it's very commendable that we're able to achieve that. But for some reason, D.H. Lawrence seems to be a special case, and there's no reason why it should be. And I want to pick up further on that, if I can find the figures, because where are we? I don't know where they've gone now. the costings, here we are. When I look on page 89, the revised estimate for the D.H. Lawrence Birthplace Museum, the revenue budget is 143,000, but the base budget for the next financial year is £208,900. Now, if we're going to be spending over £200,000 on the D.H. Lawrence Museum, how are we going to get down the subsidy from the current figure that you're saying it is this year down a couple of pounds even, which is still a pretty poor performance as far as I am concerned. In part, we may well be doing it by cutting grants to voluntary organisations. We're going to be cutting those, I can see. So I don't know which voluntary organisations will be getting less. When I look on page 90, D.H. Lawrence Birthplace Museum, there's been an increase in central support recharges. Recharges again. What else are you putting on to them? And perhaps more to the point, what are you actually keeping off their budget so that you can massage the subsidy per visit? That's what we'd really like to know. You know, what's hiding under there? Because, corporate communications, that's going up. Is that less? That's more, isn't it? Corporate communications is part of the increase, 25,000. So presumably that's to advertise it, to try and get more people in, to try and bolster the numbers. And support services, what? 41,000 extra for support services. And what I would also like to know, and I'm not expecting you to be able to provide it tonight, but how many of the few visitors that museum gets, how many are actually Broxtowe residents? How many are Broxtowe residents and how many are from outside, getting the very generous subsidy of Broxtowe council tax payers? Because that would be interesting to know. I think that's enough to be going on with at the moment.
Okay, Dan, do you want to answer any of that? No. Right. Councillor Jeremiah then.
Right, to remind Councillor Owen that it was actually the school that shut down Kimberley Leisure Centre, not the council, which is something he seems to struggle with.
Money for the maintenance of it.
Open-ended maintenance.
Fine 17 million for Bramco.
No private company would have an unopened capital liability.
Is he finished? Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you. We've rehearsed, or Councillor Owens rehearsed his discussions around D.H. Lawrence Centre many times, and we believe in, of course, having a variety of attractions across the authority, and a difference really in terms of offer to the people of Broxtowe and wider. Interestingly, though, his point about fundamentally concessions is an interesting one, and the delineation between Broxtowe or non-Broxtowe residents, because of course the Shakespeare museums, the Shakespeare birthplace museums, do offer a free concession for all residents within that Coventry postcode. And I'm just wondering whether, before he gets off his phone, or whether he's listening or not, whether he agrees about we should be offering or extending concessions to a similarly literary giant of England across the residents of Broxtowe, or, by his thinking, of course, is whether we shouldn't be offering any kind of subsidy or concession to a cultural kind of jewel in the crown, such as the D.H. Lawrence Centre. However, of course, in terms of, I mean, if you extend the argument, he is quite happy as, of course, a Nuttall parish councillor to try and seek subsidy off Broxtowe Borough Council for not all events around remembrance, or should indeed we be extending that logic to say that not all shouldn't be receiving any subsidy at all from Broxtowe Council?
No, we should just want to receive the same subsidy that Beeston receives.
It's a matter of making it fair, Councillor Marshall. Have you finished, or are you going on? Okay.
So I think just
Why do I get the feeling that
Tideswell,
Councillor
Councillor
Owen
Tideswell.
will not be happy until all tourism is banned from Broxtowe?
jump to respond to some of those, Joe. So yeah, through you, Chair, I think, so going back to Councillor Winfield's comment about air quality, and fully noted, I'll report that back to sort of our environmental health teams. I mean, the environmental health team continues to sort of monitor air quality performance, you know, in the area, and report back as well. But noting what you're saying about Beeston West, and also whether the targets that we're setting are, you know, are stretch targets and are something that we could be developing on.
Sorry, Chair, just on that point, I think the last air quality and monitoring report says that there's no place in Broxtowe that's now failing its air quality standards.
The census data
Yeah.
didn't say that. But
Councillor Tideswell, do you want to say something else? I thought you put your hand up. Anybody else? Councillor Cole.
On the air quality, of course, this is one of those things where we have to do the donkey work. Yet we've got absolutely no control on the outcome. And Councillor Marshall's right. The actual work that we had to do as a council, for the first time for a long time, actually revealed that there were no areas of worry. Nuttall was always one, where the motorway went over the main road, but even that now is unacceptable, or whatever acceptable is terms. But it's something that as a council we've got no control over whatsoever.
Through you, Chair, I'm really pleased to hear that things have improved. I do accept that the census data is nearly 5 years out of date now, so.
Excellent, good.
Anyone else?
Again, maybe just to come back on a couple of points that Councillor Owen raised, but obviously we've discussed sort of subsidy and the like this evening. I think you do raise an interesting point about the fact that, like I say, with the change in the recharge process, we are actually recharging more cost to the museum, and maybe that goes slightly against sort of the massaging figures that we talked about. So again, we'll be reviewing where we are with recharges as well. But it does give us a it does give us a challenge in terms of, at the moment, the net cost of the museum is showing as being more expensive next year. And again, that is linked purely to the amount of resource, the officer time that is then charged there from the centre. I'm trying to think if there was any. Just as another point as well, in terms of budget, there's reference there to the grant aid budget reducing in 26-27. Actually, it's more of a case of in this financial year we've taken a draw from revenue contingencies to support the number of grant applications come through, and at this stage we've actually the figures represented there are just a returning to the baseline position. So technically speaking, the revised estimate to the base is a reduction, but actually it's just reverting back to what baseline is.
And you'll let me have the figures for the museum regarding the Broxtowe visitors.
Yes, if they're available. Again, if they're available.
So much if we made them free.
Yeah, if it's data available, we'll look at that. Thank you.
Well, it should be, because one of the targets is to increase the numbers. So if you haven't got any baseline data, you don't whether you're increasing them or not.
Right, are we ready then?
There you go.
Okay. So there's been a proposer and a seconder for the recommendation, which is the committee has asked to note that Liberty Leisure Limited business plan and recommend that Cabinet approves the Leisure and Health business plan. Cabinet recommends to Council that the following be approved: the detailed revenue budget estimates for 2026-27, base the capital programme for 2026-27 to 2028-29, the fees and charges for 2006-27. Right, all in favour? Against? Abstentions? You counted them? I haven't counted them, have you?
We're all right with that one.
Can I go now?
Yes, thank you. Well done, Joe. Still got it all.
Thank you, Jill. So we are on to agenda item 9, which is the Environment, Climate Change Business Plans and Financial Estimates. I believe you'll lead this one, Emma.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. Yeah, so this is the report linked to the Environment and Climate Change Business Plan and the financial estimates. Yeah, pleased that we've got Emma Georgiou as the Assistant Director of Environmental Services joining us this evening to present the Environment Business Plan. Also online, we've got Richard Mott, who's going to support with the Bereavement Services Business Plan, which is from page 117 for members this evening, if any questions on there. And then further on into the report, we've got the revenue budget estimates for the environment and climate change area, including giving a rundown in terms of the key changes between the two respective years. Similarly, again, we've got a capital programme with some large items there relating to fleet and plant replacement, and also the implementation of food waste collections and Pride in Parks programme as well. And then a list of fees and charges associated with environment, which again includes some element of parks income in there as well. So again, if I may, I'll bring Emma in to introduce the plan. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So thank you very much. Just in terms of a reminder for everybody, environment covers waste and recycling, it covers street cleansing, it covers grounds maintenance, parks and open spaces, environmental enforcement and climate change. What I'll do is I'll sort of have a quick run through the performance measures and pick out some key highlights, if that's okay, Chair. So first of all, I just want to pick up on the recycling rate. Obviously in 24-25 we achieved 35.5%. We are on track on Q3 so far, so I'm pleased to say that is on the increase with 36 at the moment. So hopefully we'll be showing good progress by the end of the year. In terms of a real positive highlight, it's obviously our reduction in our carbon emissions, and we achieved 26.4% last year, which is a fantastic achievement, and then due to our transition to HVO. One to keep an eye on is our Scope 3 emissions. As we get to grips with how detailed and difficult it is to quantify those, we can see that there has been an increase. That doesn't surprise me. As we get to make sure that our data quality is more accurate, that reporting will become more accurate in itself. I do expect that probably to increase slightly. The reason why we saw an increase there is on our purchased goods and services, so that's something that we will be picking up, addressing as a team. Missed bins, this is always an interesting one. We have seen real positive results with our missed bin collections. A missed bin is not always good in our books, and that's something we will always as a team be looking to rectify. I know that Councillor Kingdom previously raised in full council about the information that was published by the Mirror that was not really positive for Broxtowe. But what I would say to members there in terms of that is our reporting for Broxtowe, we report every single bin as missed. So if the bin wasn't out, if the bin was contaminated, if the team couldn't get to the bin, we report those all as missed. not that I'm wanting to create work for myself, Councillor Danheimer, but that's something perhaps we could look at in overview, or could be looked at in overview and scrutiny, in terms of more accurate reporting, and look at potential policy changes for those.
That's a quick question on the missed bins.
Yes.
Just with, obviously recently we had the issue with the snow. Yeah. Would they all be counted?
So that was, they were counted. We have taken that off because obviously that really skewed the figures. And where we put a plan in place to say we're coming back, we still had a lot of people phone up and report their bin as missed. So we have tried to take those off. So, but you're right, they would be reflected in our missed bin figures. And that's, we need to be looking as a team to more accurately reflect our missed bins. We also make it very easy for our residents to report a missed bin. When you look at other districts, when you go online or trying to report a missed bin, it's very difficult. For our residents, we make it very, very easy. We also have residents that report quite frequently their bins have been missed as a question mark. So these are all things that could be potentially looked at more in depth with overview and scrutiny as a potential project. Not that I'm wanting to give myself any work, but there's a potential item there. In terms of garden waste subscriptions, we've obviously seen a decrease. That's the second year in a row. What's really positive is that the price has been frozen for missed bin prices, so we're keeping at the £45 mark, and I've only seen a £2 increase on our additional bins. When I'm speaking to my other counterparts across Nottinghamshire, we are very competitive, so that's very, very positive. In terms of number of fly tipping incidents, that so we've seen a real significant increase of 1,052 for 24-25. What I'm really positive to, or pleased to report, and I will be taking a report back to Cabinet at the beginning of February, is we've seen a significant decrease in our fly tipping. So for Q3, we've only reported 340 incidents. You know, compare that to a full year of 1,052. Really good positive progress. I'm hoping that has been attributed to the use of our environmental enforcement partnership with WISE. Another real positive is the Clean and Green events. Really seen a big increase in those. That's community litter picks, that's community engagement events, that's speaking with schools. A real positive increase in uptake there with residents across the borough. In terms of residual black bin collections, we've seen a little bit of an increase. Now, because that is kilograms per household, this indicates that this is not reflected by the number of households that are across the borough, but actually the fact that people are putting more things in their black bin. And this is obviously something that the team are planning or are continually addressing. So there's obviously more work to be done there. With fixed penalty notices, I just want to say that we will not ever be setting a target for that. It will be data only, and we will just be reporting on the number of fixed penalties that are issued. And then just in terms of our electric vehicles, just to say that I'm happy to report that we're adding to that, and I think we've had at least one further electric vehicle that we've ordered. Happy to take any further questions on that.
Yes, so thank you very much, Emma. I'm sure there's a few questions on it. Who'd like to start with questions? Tyler.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's a mention on page 102 in the first item around waste recycling of the Simpler Recycling programme that's coming in from March. Presumably that does impact on other elements of the report and the targets and all that sort of thing as well. You know, in terms of residual waste that you mentioned, composting, etc. What sort of expectations do we have for any of the targets and the changes moving forward with the Simpler Recycling? And have we got the sort of requisite guidance and obviously crucially funding from government to implement that properly and see those trends reversed as is expected, as outlined on page 102? And secondly, we might not have targets for fixed penalty notice, but are we aware of any targets that WISE have? Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we'll go to it, yeah. Do you want to go and qualify those two first? Yeah.
Sorry, through you, Chair, if that's all right, if I can address, one councillor at a time. So, Councillor Marsh, in terms of expectations with simpler recycling and obviously the inclusion of food waste recycling, which will start in 27, it has been predicted that our recycling rate will go over 45%. Now, that's modelled. We need to be implementing these schemes to see what the impact is. I would definitely like to hope that with simpler recycling starting on the 1st of April, we will see a benefit in those. In terms of funding from government, we have had new burdens funding for food waste. Does it cover all our costs? No, it doesn't. And there is a shortfall on that. And that's been highlighted in some reports I've already taken to Cabinet. In terms of guidance, I've currently just been checking tonight the leaflet that we will be sending out to all our residents in February and March that will give residents the guidance as to what new materials can go in the bin. So that's Tetra Paks, foil and plastic pots, tubs and trays. That will see an increase in what can go in the green lidded recycling bin. That will hopefully see a lowering of our contamination rate. And positively, we are seeing a lowering of our contamination rate anyway, and that's through the work of the team and through not only the refuse crews, so they're identifying more contamination at the curbside, but also the waste and engagement that we're doing with residents as well. So we're seeing positive benefits there. With regards to targets, no, we don't set a target. With WISE, they shouldn't do, because that's in the specification to say that we don't want that. And that's something, again, I can pick up with, I've got an account meeting with WISE tomorrow. That's a question that I can ask them.
Thank you. Any other questions? Philip?
Yeah, one or 2 points. On page 102, Emma's already made reference to recycling rates, and we know that these have been in decline for a while now. I think fatigue is setting in, quite frankly, over this and the number of bins that appear. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't share her optimism regarding the food waste recycling. I think people will not be particularly enamoured to it, but time will tell on that. Going on to page 103, can I ask, as reference at the top there to transition from DERV to HVO, is there any cost or savings, and if so, how much, on an annual basis, using one or the other? I'd like to know that. If you haven't got the answer to hand, then I'm happy to accept a written response. On page 105, the income generated by garden waste has been a decrease of 1.4% in garden waste subscribers, which set against the context of an increasing number of houses in Broxtowe is particularly disappointing, but not necessarily surprising, because we did warn when the costs went up that you were likely to see a decrease, and that we've been proved right. That has happened. Yeah, I had got 1 or 2 more. That was all I think. Oh, it's been touched upon earlier, the question of fees and charges, and I just pick on one on page 135, where...
Philip, can we say that one till we get to... because that's going to be a separate report.
Oh,
because that's the Secretary's 1135, isn't it?
Well, it is in part, but not all of it, no. Because I was going to talk about tennis.
This is the same.
On, say again,
I was going to talk about costs for tennis.
Okay.
And I don't think we play tennis in the cemetery.
Who knows?
I just come to the proposed charges at the moment. Adults it's proposed go up from £4 to £5 an hour for a grass court, and a hard court from 3 to 4. this, has already been pointed out, does fly in the face of trying to get people active. 4 to 5% is 25%. Is it 25%? Yeah, 25% increase, which is significant. And I don't know why that has been picked upon to have such a significant increase in charges. It seems to me to be a little bit unfair. Many years ago, you may not believe, but I was quite a regular tennis player, and I would have balked at having to pay 25% extra to go and play tennis. I presume you want the extra money to subsidise all those visitors from outside going into the D.H. Lawrence Museum, but there we are. I don't think that's right. And then I think Councillor Carr touched upon fixed penalty notices for littering in particular. Page 133, environmental enforcement. We've got FPN littering, FPN fly tipping upper tier, FPN fly tipping lower tier. I can't remember what the difference is, but we've got differences in penalty notices, and there seems to be a lack of consistency in those, as far as I can tell. FPN littering, £500 and £500, no increase, unless you're a poor tennis player. Early repayment, you only have to pay £100. Well, I don't see why you should get let off £400 just because you pay it early. You've littered, therefore you should be paying the fine. Fly tipping upper tier is £1,000, and you get let off 50% for an early repayment, 50% of it, which is not the same percentage as FPN normal littering. And FPN fly tipping lower tier, we've got a difference there. The early repayment is £200. It seems to me that they all ought to be brought in line, if at all possible, unless these are ones that are set nationally, but I'm not sure that they are.
Yeah, I think they are, Philip, actually.
Well, if they are, they are. We can't do anything about it, unfortunately. But it seems daft, but then I wouldn't expect anything else of this government.
So, was there any other questions? Yeah, okay. I'll start. Or do you want to come back on those first, Emma?
Through you, Chair. Is it all right if I do what?
Whichever works easier for you, so you don't miss anything.
Right, because there was quite a few questions from Councillor Owen. So, in terms of the recycling rates being in decline, you're absolutely right. But I would suggest that it's not fatigue. It's a general decline across the UK. It's also as a response to reduction in packaging, so we're seeing positive there. That's obviously impacting on the bins and the amounts of materials that recycling. But obviously, with simpler recycling coming on board, we should see some positive uplift there. In terms of food waste, I'm hoping there will be very positive uptake from residents. We get a lot of questions from residents to say, when are we introducing it? I think residents are wanting that as a service because it goes weekly from their household, rather than having their black bin emptied once a fortnight. That kind of element of smelly waste will go from their bin once a week, making their lives much better. So hopefully we'll see a positive output there. In terms of DERV, the transition from DERV to HVO, it does cost. I will come back to Councillor Owen with an accurate figure, but it was around £65,000 a year. That probably will decrease because we've seen a decrease in the price per litre that we pay for our HVO. But obviously the impact there is that we've seen a really positive impact on our carbon emissions. So while some elements do cost, we are seeing the benefit of that. Not only that, we're seeing a benefit with our air quality as well. So it's a real positive transition. In terms of garden waste decrease in the number of subscribers, yes, that has happened, but obviously what has happened as a consequence of that, we've frozen the price of garden waste subscriptions for the coming year. We've just increased our additional bins by £2, so that will hopefully address that and pick up new developments as they come on board. In terms of the fees and charges, I think it's a £1 increase. Yes, that may indicate a 25% increase, but I think it offers very good value for money when you think about the amount of grounds maintenance that needs to be undertaken on these surfaces. In terms of FPNs for littering, it is split for fly tipping, and the reason being that the difference is for a lower tier, you are looking at anything up to, I think, 5 black bags worth of waste. Now, we don't want to be charging our residents fly tipping for 5 black bags worth of waste, and they're looking at a maximum charge of £1,000. So that's why those fees were split, because we did initially have a FPN, a fly tipping, one covers all at £1,000. Now that's not fair for residents if they are found to be fly tipping a very small amount of waste. So that's one bulky waste item. So for example, a fridge or a washing machine, £1,000 fine is quite steep, which is why they were split. In terms of the fees, they are set by government. In terms of the early repayment, that is guidance given by government for those. So that's where that comes from that. But I know that members very much supported, and the leader very much supported, maximum charges to dissuade this kind of poor environmental behaviour and try and improve that standard across the borough.
Yes, yeah. Is it worth hearing from Richard about bereavement services?
We've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
These are primarily for Emma, yes? And then we'll come in back on the improvement services. Yes, Helen.
I've just got a question based on page 105, the fall in income generated through trade waste. Just wondering if we knew why that fall had happened, which businesses, is there a particular area where businesses have chosen not to have the council deal with their trade waste, and why the target isn't a bit more ambitious to recover the amount of income that was previously achieved.
Okay. Steve, did you have a question? Yeah.
Having heard what Emma said about missed bins and what we count and what we count, I would fully support a review of that. Also, I would like, if possible, which is pertinent to this report as well, and also the health agenda, is I don't know if we're actually doing anything as a council with regards to the smoke-free sidelines campaign, which we can actually hopefully prevent people smoking at the sidelines of children's matches, basically. There are health risks there, it's normalising behaviour, and it's not very nice if you're a parent watching your son or your daughter play football when somebody's next to you smoking their head off, and it's not a good example. So, sorry? Yeah, I mean, I just wonder whether we're actually promoting that and enforcing that on our parks.
Tyler?
No, I just want to come back on the tennis point really and come to a bit of the defence. I mean, I play tennis regularly, albeit at a private club, and those amounts that we see on page 135 are a hell of a lot less than you would find in private clubs. And again, I think a lot of the time councils can act as an introductory rate. I know we also have free courts for use. I started playing on the King George's Park court in Bramcote. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to see those sort of prices, and incidentally a hell of a lot cheaper than paddle, which some private courts are paying sort of £40 an hour for that at the moment. I did also want just to come back quickly on the simpler recycling and whether, although I do find it interesting that you're opposed to it, Councillor Owen, given that it was your government that introduced it, but whether we'd see any inspections in the immediate, whatever you call it, in the immediate trial after the introduction, and see whether there will be inspections to see whether people are abiding by that. Really, thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned about the correlation that we're drawing between garden waste subscriptions and the decrease, because
you know, what's happened in other areas, because once again, cost of living decrease, things have got to go. Is garden waste one of those? Is that reflected by other authorities? Because, you know, once again, we're just drawing to conclusions that might not necessarily be there.
Emma, would you like to come back on those? And then we'll go to Richard.
Through you, Chair. So, okay, so Councillor Fascio, in terms of the trade waste fall, it is to do with obviously the cost of it living impact on the businesses. They've mainly closed, so we've seen a reduction in the amount of businesses that we have because of those pressures. In the fees and charges, we have amended those fees and charges structure to make us a little bit more competitive, and it will be balanced with a marketing strategy as well to try and build those numbers up again, because we do offer a really good service to our customers, and that will hopefully be addressed moving forward. In terms of Councillor Carr, promoting non-smoking at the sidelines, that's something I need to pick up with the team. I'm not sure whether the team do that, but I can come back to you on that, Councillor Carr. In Councillor Marsh, with the inspections for simpler recycling, yes, so we have a contamination survey done on our loads, and we will be able to tell. So it gives us a breakdown of all the materials that are going in the recycling bin, both good and bad. So I'll be able to share that with members once that kicks off, because we have a number of vehicles sampled every month. So I'll be able to share that with members in terms of the impact that will have or will have on those collections. In terms of Councillor Kingdom, in terms of a reduction in garden waste subscriptions, some of the districts across Nottinghamshire have seen an increase, some of them have seen a decrease, and those that have had the decrease, with the exception of us, have put their fees up again. So I think we are working hard to address that, and hopefully we will see a positive reflection of that in the coming season. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Sorry, just very quickly. I don't know if I worded the question correctly. What I was sort of getting to really, and the reason I bring it up is because I didn't realise that this recycling policy had filtered down to the general public. My grandma did ask me about it. I think she saw it on GB News. But essentially it was that the worry was that the inspections would happen per household, essentially, as if someone's snooping around in the bin to make sure they're not doing it. I just thought we could reassure people that that's not what will be happening. And what you're talking about is, as you know, the lorry load.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So in terms of, we don't do that. So we check the bins to make sure that the right material's going in the right bin, and obviously if the wrong material's going in, we do reject that bin, because it can cause a lot of problems. In terms of information for the residents, as I said, tonight I've just gone through the leaflet that will be distributed to all residents in February and March, that will tell residents exactly what they can and can't be putting in the bin, and sort of updating them, a real positive piece that they'll be able to put more things in their bin. So just watch out for that, because that will be, I'll be sending a draft to all members in the coming weeks, just so that you can see what we'll be circulating.
Thank you, Emma. And on that point, we'll bring in Richard for the bereavement.
Yeah.
If he's still with us.
Patiently waiting.
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. So the bereavement services business plan, obviously bereavement services is a sensitive topic, but however we do operate within a industry where there are 7 other crematoriums in our local area and burial authorities. So the main point really is to, obviously we do go through the Bereavement Services Joint Committee, where we report all of our activities. On page 119, which is the crucial point of our KPIs, is our market share. And we gauge that on the number of deaths that are available within the area. And we set that then against our what we call our core and targeted areas and our out of area. 24-25, you can see that we did see a significant decrease to 44.1% market share, and this was due to new crematoria opening and the increase in nationwide funeral providers. But it is our intention, through the marketing strategy and through new services that we're going to be offering, that we are going to retain in this financial year is 47%, and then an increase of 48% and 50% in subsequent years. What we've also seen launch in 25-26 was our prepaid cremation plan. This was critical to local residents. What we managed to do was launch a service which would lock in the cost of a funeral at today's prices, meaning that at the time of death there wasn't any further financial burden to the surviving family. And this has been well received, and we will continue to market this. And I think as the years go by, there will be a further uptake on that, which is only going to benefit the residents of the local and wider community. Moving on to our key priorities and tasks and priorities, we are coming to the close of our replacement cremator project. That isn't quite finished yet, but it should be finished by the end of this financial year. That's going to have a positive impact on our carbon footprint. But also what is very exciting is the Woodland Burials project, which will be the first for Broxtowe. We have never offered it before to the local residents, but it means that within our cemeteries that we can offer a woodland or natural burial area for those that should wish to choose that option. There are other projects that are in the pipeline, which are going to also help with the market share. And I'm happy to take any further questions.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody got any questions for Richard on the bereavement part of the plan? Yes, Steve.
Yes, thank you. I think we're probably seeing an impact at the moment, Richard, and obviously I used to be a member of the committee until the Labour Party split, and then we suddenly became the fourth largest party. But there you go. I think people are beginning to find out that these pure cremations are not what people expected them to be. And I think with our prepaid cremation service, you're offering people the knowledge and the guarantee of how much they're going to be paying, and it will be in your local crematorium and not somewhere miles away, which is what happens a lot with these pure cremations. And I think that's an important message to get across.
Thank you. Yeah, if I can say, Chair, the pure cremation is only one of a handful of nationwide funeral service providers. And yes, Councillor Carr, you are correct that some people aren't aware that their loved one is being taken out of the local area, and potentially all the costs aren't always upfront and clearly identified. And it's our drive at Bramcote to make sure that people know that there are alternatives. You can stay in the local area, that loved ones can be rest assured that their loved ones are just down the road at a local funeral director or at Bramcote Crematorium. And so it's these sorts of incentives that we're trying to drive forward now to let people know through the marketing strategy.
Thank you, Richard. Has anybody else got any questions for Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for the report. I mean, not only are these corporate options for cremation, you know, sometimes have hidden costs, but, you know, let alone in the local area, sometimes people can actually go out the country to be cremated in industrial sized cremators, and it's certainly an opportunity for Broxtowe to reinforce what I think is actually in my view, and certainly from people who talk to me, a very sensitive and a really good service that the crematorium provide. I've never heard of a bad report from someone having their service at the crematorium. And you've also then gone through a significant capital investiture this time around, which I know, you know, due to the sensitive area of your job, Richard, you've kind of managed to keep most of the difficulties about it behind closed doors, which I think is testament to how you've managed the job. But I know there have been some difficulties with that as well. So well done on coming coming out the other side. It's great to hear of the option around of extending or introducing the woodland service. The only other thing I'd say as well, Richard, and I think we've touched on it before, but I'd like to see it as part of that strategy, is the offer for the Muslim community as well, and being able to position Broxtowe at the front of that service to the Muslim community for their burial requirements as well. I think that's a good opportunity for the authority as well. Thanks, Chair.
Richard, want to go back on that?
Yes, Chair, if I could just come back on that, Councillor Marshall. I've recently had meetings with the Muslim community, and as recent as last Thursday at the joint committee meeting, we did discuss Muslim burials and how we were going to progress that further to go out to the wider community, the wider Muslim community, to try and bring more burials into the Chilwell Cemetery in particular, which currently does facilitate Muslim burial.
Okay. Helen, you had a question?
Yeah, I was visiting the Crem one day, and they were just planning a direct, what do you call it, dispersal of ashes for people who don't want to come and take them away. And I was just really cheered that they do it with such dignity. They take the ashes and they lay them and they read a poem that they've chosen, and they make the whole thing really respectful and dignified. I was very impressed with that.
Okay, thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, I just want to make a point as well on the payment plans as well, because there's cases of private companies who are giving out payment plans who then go bust, and there's no recourse to getting your money back. So having some sort of like local authority backed initiative, I think, is really good, and will give people reassurance that that isn't going to happen, which is disgraceful, I might add.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Richard? Okay. Anybody got any other questions on this item agenda 9? Okay. So I'd like to propose it. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. All those in favour? Against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
You'll be glad to know we're nearly at the end. So item agenda 10 is the Cabinet Work Programme. I'd like to propose it, seconder. So Emma, do you want to add anything to this? Colin?
Yeah, I'm getting concerned with the amount of Wolverhampton taxes we are having at the moment.
The what, sorry?
Wolverhampton taxes that we are having.
Oh, taxes, yeah. Sorry.
Borrow mine. I know for a fact that, you know, that there always being this underlying thing about county lines, that we cannot regulate the taxes that are coming in or that are being licensed at Wolverhampton. And to be honest with you, we know for a fact that Wolverhampton don't give a damn about what they're doing. So can we actually put that down, the Wolverhampton taxes, on our worksheet? Because we really need to look at the properties.
It's a new one on me. I didn't know it was a problem, Colin, to be honest and truthful. Jeremy?
Yeah, through you, Chair. This is, we're specifically looking at the Cabinet Work Programme at the moment, but our next item is looking at the Scrutiny Work Programme.
Yes, Steve.
Thanks, Chair. On the 10th of March, there's an item there, the hate crime pledge. And I just wondered, is that going to become through to the policy overview to look at before it goes to Cabinet?
No idea, Jeremy.
Through you, Chair. My assumption is yes, but I can't say for sure, but I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay. So it's been proposed, seconded. All those in favour? Against? And abstentions? Okay. So last part on the agenda for tonight. Item 11, which is the scrutiny. So, Colin, you wanted to add that. So, can I suggest you bring that to the next scrutiny meeting?
Yeah, okay.
And then we can discuss it properly with the team, yeah? And then we can have a look at that. But, Colin, can you bring some more information as well, if you could, please, yeah? As much information as possible so we can understand it.
I think licensing team know all that.
Oh, do they? Right. Okay.
Through you, Chair, I've made a note of Councillor Tidewell's suggestion. We've also got Emma's her own suggestion. Thank you, Emma, of mis-bin calculations. So thank you, Emma. So I'll also gather any suggestions from tomorrow, and at our March meeting, what we'll do is we'll set out a work programme for the year where we'll consider all of the suggestions that we've got in. I know that the leader has also suggested a lot, yeah, including non-domestic rates and governance of the East Midlands Combined Counties Authority as well. So we'll bring those along for discussion.
Excellent, excellent. So there's that. We've got the work programme. So I'll propose that. Seconder? All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you very much for your time, and I shall see most of you again tomorrow.